conspiracy theory. And I've heard a right wing reply to, I think it was Cynthia McKinney was talking about, yeah, Bush stole the election and blah 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 blah, and this right wing guy said, yeah, and the grassy knoll and this and Roswell and the grassy knoll. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, it's pretty unbelievable, really. I think it's a very effective tactic.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Conspiracy theories and stuff. What's so funny about it? Yeah, it's hard for me to get over to something else I want to know, and but let's put it this way: since you seem to me like a guy that is pretty informed and gets into a lot of stuff and dealings and thinks a lot about life and how life becomes life and how the world becomes a world. Since you're also a father of 2 kids and soon to be 3 kids, coming back on Earth, being earthened by this family thing, how do you approach a family life? I mean, is there anything that you want to give your kids from your knowledge, how you raise your kids, how you deal with that?
I think I'm pretty liberal, actually. A very good example is that our new babysitter, she's 18 years old. She moved into our basement to take care of our kids, to live in our house, and I'm fine with her boyfriend spending the night. But my wife was a little bit weird, and my wife was just like, "Oh, I'm not a prude, but..." I'm like, "But what?" I said, did you tell her she's not allowed to do this? And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, okay then." I said, "To be honest with you, I really don't care." She's like, "Well, I don't want the kids to see that." And I said, "You don't want the kids to see what? That she's an 18-year-old woman and has her boyfriend sleep over, or what?" So that's the kind of stuff that's not going to bother me, I don't think. I think that I'm going to be very nervous about the drug thing, because I understand, but at the same time, I'm not going to be able to be a hypocrite. Of course, if they steal my pot, I'm going to get mad. But how am I going to, how do you approach something like that? I mean, if you, let's just say you smoke pot. If you smoke pot, how can you tell your child not to smoke pot? Or, I think that the most important thing will be to tell them, to tell them the stories, and to let them know, look, there's another life out there, and there's a path you can choose, and I'm going to do my best to guide them the right way.
But on the other hand, this is a lot more, to my opinion, that you can give your kids than other parents can. I mean, like the drug thing is obvious, and it's a problem with every kid nowadays, even if it is in school or younger or getting older. But I think there's a lot of parents out there who come from a generation where it wasn't that big of an issue, and they haven't been part of it, and you have been part of it. So you can tell this to kids from your own experience, which is, to my opinion, it's more than a lot of other parents could give their kids.
Right. I mean, I'm hoping that I can just pull from all the negative experiences and all the good experiences, and just kind of like, warn them, and also hopefully guide them. I mean, that's like, I guess my the biggest thing to worry about with having children these days is living in the United States. There's so much gang activity and stuff, and it's easy to see the root causes. And I must say that U.S. foreign policy, I think, has played quite a bit in the problems we have now. I don't think that we've even begun to feel some of the problems that we're going to have from the Muslim communities and stuff like this, or maybe not the Muslim communities in the United States, but the rest of the Arab world. Because, hey, I don't feel very comfortable being hated in the world because of something that our president does. And so I think that we've had our involvement with Salvador. We've had our involvement with Nicaragua. We've had our involvement with Philippines. You know, we've had our involvement with, you know, we've supported people that have just totally destroyed, you know, whole ethnic groups and stuff. And so I think that now the United States has become this this kind of last refuge for people, and people they're leaving absolute poverty. They've seen so much civil war. Maybe they've seen their parents or they're killed in front of their faces, or their brother and sisters killed in front of their faces, and they bring this kind of this low respect for human life, you know, like where human life is just, it's not valued as high.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem, because these kids, they, you know, their parents are working 2 jobs, or maybe they've only got one parent, so they have no parent to guide them through, so they join these gangs, and you know, these gangs are at the schools and stuff, and I think that's a problem. I think that's pretty much I think it's going to be my biggest worry.
Yeah. What about, like, when you're saying you're not going to be a hypocrite on things, and it comes all down to deciding between letting them make their own mistakes or trying to prevent them from their own mistakes. I mean, it all sounds pretty good in theory, but what happens when
they steal your car and go out drinking?
Yeah. Put it that way.
I think that's going to be one of the things that you're going to have to, are going to have to cross those bridges when you come to it. I mean, really, I don't know. It's troubling.
Yeah. How much of this, the ideals or the ideas you have in mind, how you approach this certain incidents, how much of this comes from your own childhood? I mean, how have you been raised? How have you been dealt with?
I'm kind of anticipating the worst because I mean, I know I was a pretty wild child. I mean, you know, I took my first hit of acid when I was 12. Started shooting coke when I was 16, 15. So we were drinking whiskey, mainlining really good quality cocaine when I was 16 years old. Taking acid all the time, Quaaludes, whatever, pills, and then, of course, we started smoking PCP, that's why I have a hard time, you know, adding and subtracting these days. But, you know, I mean, I did so much, you know, stole cars, all that kind of stuff, and so I'm kind of hoping, in a way that it almost seems though that the drug thing is kind of a little bit played down now.
What about music? I mean,
Well, the interesting about my boys is, you know, when they listen to they're the first ones to hear all my stuff. I mean, They're the first ones to hear the rough mixes.
Mm-hmm.
They're the first ones to hear the studio demos we do, and so they always hear everything first, you know. And it was interesting because when I was getting ready to do the St. Vitus tribute, I made a tape of the set of all the recorded stuff, and I just would listen to it in the car with I only had one boy at the time. He was 2, so at 2 years old he was getting fully bombarded with St. Vitus every day.
Nodding.
He likes it. He liked it. He liked it fine. He loves it. He'd rather listen to St. Vitus than the Hidden Hand, which is a little bit. Divine Propaganda was a little bit too edgy for him.
All right. Yeah, probably it's a lot more complicated songwriting.
Complicated. It's a little bit faster. A little bit like more aggro. I think he was a little bit jangly. Yeah. So maybe he's like his daddy, and he just is drawn to that kind of that low, visceral kind of feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are you gonna force your kids? I mean, like, have you been thinking about putting them in like music schools or something?
I'm gonna let them find their own way.
Okay.
I think that's the best way. I mean, I'm a guitar player, and I've got guitars laying around and amps and all. And when I'm practicing, with they like to come in and do the wah wah, and it's really funny to see my 3-year-old do it because he's so little. that he can barely
Oh, really?
do it. But he comes in, and he's like, you know, and he's just like, so they want a piece of everything that I do. Even if it's only for a minute, they want to come in, they want to touch the guitar, they want to touch everything, they want to. It's like when I first built the Leslie,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the Leslie rebuilt and the speaker is spinning, and I brought in Nick, my 5-year-old, and I'm like, okay, check this out, because they really like to sing Scooby-Doo,
Mm-hmm.
and they really like to grab the mic and be like, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? You know? And actually, they can both carry tunes. Like, my 5-year-old can actually carry a really good tune. Like, he's actually a really good singer. And so I brought him in, and I'm like, okay, check this out. And I said, you see this? And he said, yeah. And I said, watch in there what happens. And then the speaker starts to go.
Yeah.
I said, okay. I said, now sing into this. And he takes the mic, and he starts singing, and it's like, you know, and he's like, wow, that's really cool. And I said, whatever you do, don't put your hand in there,
Okay.
because that thing is moving, and he's, you know, it's about this tall, and he's back behind there, and he's like, watch, listening, and I'm playing, and I'm playing and playing, and all of a sudden I hear this whoop, and I said, you put your hand in there, didn't you? He's like, yeah. I mean, he's gonna do it no matter what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's the thing that I always often think about. It's like, how much sense does it make to try to prevent kids or growing-up kids from making mistakes, because they're gonna do it anyway, and if they don't do it, they never learn that it's wrong. So
right. So yeah, I think that there's you know, a limit. Okay. You know, if they're gonna, a good example, a really really good example is my sister's husband's son from another marriage, okay? And he's 16, and his mother heard him talking to his friend on the phone about smoking pot. And so his dad, who is my sister's husband, never tried a drug in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very, very cool guy. He's really into like sailing and camping and all that stuff. He's a very, very nice, very intelligent guy, but he's never tried a drug in his life. But he knows that I have. And so he called me, or he called my mother, and my mom called me. They're like, well, he's really worried about, you know, because Jonathan is smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, what should he do? You know, do you have any advice for him? You know, I was like, wow, you know, I'm going to have to think about this. So me and my wife talked it over, and we both agreed he's a top-notch student.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really good kid. As far as we know, he doesn't do any other hard drugs or anything like that. So our only advice is like, don't take his car away, or don't come down on him. Just let him know that they live in Georgia. So if you can call a pot,
all right,
you know, just make sure he knows how much trouble he could get into,
mm-hmm.
or what could happen to him if you get thrown in jail. That's just, I mean, I think the pot is nothing compared to what could happen to you if you get thrown in jail with a bunch of criminals, you know, that are predatory kind of criminals. So, you know, the advice we had was watch him closely, talk to him about it, and if he told his dad, I liked it, and I'm probably going to do it again. So, what are you going to say? I say you watch him, make sure that he's okay, and you just kind of have to kind of coach him about harder drugs, harder stuff. But, I mean, it's if he keeps his grades good,
mm-hmm.
and it's, hey, maybe it's something he tries, he likes, or he doesn't like, and whatever, you know. But you're right, there's a limit as to what you can do.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right to be like, to come down on them, like let on shit, you know, like that's what kind of like my parents did.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really makes you just go hard the other way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're just like I'm going to call every single one of your friends, and I'm going to call every single one of your friends' mothers, and I'm going to like, you know, you're grounded, you know, for a month, and this, that, and the other, and the kid is going to be totally resentful.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to hate you, you know.
Yeah. And he's gonna hate the lifestyle, and
then he's gonna be like, "Fuck
road.
that!" And then he's gonna fuck that, and he's gonna be like, he's gonna like take that hit of acid that he's been maybe debating about, or maybe even harder. He's gonna be like, he's going to jump out the window and run away, and the next thing you know, he's going to be snorting meth or something, which is,
Yeah.